Call AAA Heating and Air for your free estimate today and tell them Jay Phillips sent you.
AAA Air when you need us. AAA Heating and Air.
Hi, Jen here. Did you know you could earn up to 4.59% annual percentage yield with All South Federal Credit Union's premium checking account? That's 30 times more than the national average interest checking rate, which means more money in your bank account each month. Plus, they have 23 locations right here in the Midlands. Open an account online at allsouth.org or visit an All South location today to start earning more. All South is federally insured by the NCUA.
I'm with Jason Reynolds of the Samuels Reynolds Law Firm. Jason, what makes your firm different?
I think the way we present ourselves and treat our clients makes us different. We don't show injured workers, horrible vehicle accidents, or stacks of cash in our advertising. That's because injuries really affect people's lives, and we take that seriously. Our clients come to us in their toughest times, and we're truly committed to helping them in every way possible.
Samuels Reynolds. True injuries, true lawyers. 803-779-4000.
Howdy, howdy.
WNKT-FM Eastover, Columbia. The home of the national champion, Gamecocks women's basketball team. Congrats, y'all. A Cumulus media station. It's Reaction Monday. Tell us all about it.
I also know that we're going to get better throwing the football. We had 3 receivers that played a lot of snaps tonight that weren't even here during spring practice.
Sponsored by Carolina Honda Powerhouse, your local source for Honda power sports, ATVs, motorcycles, scooters, side-by-sides, and generators. Exit 70 off I-20, turned by the Flying J. Online at carolinahonda.com. From the Midlands to the PD to the beach, the Game Network.
Welcome in. Gamecock Central Takeover Hour, presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler Head, Wes Mitchell, Chris Clark, along with you on this Reaction Monday here on The Game. Carolina picks up the victory 23-19 over Old Dominion to move to 1-0, and win's a win, guys, but certainly was not the most impressive victory by any means.
That is one way to say it. It's about like that opening song we just had. It did the job, but it wasn't pretty or it wasn't fun. So, I mean, first things first, sloppy, right? Like just sloppy. Beamer said it. Anybody who watched it said it. It was a sloppy game. Maybe not necessarily to the same extent in all phases, but there were certainly things in all phases that South Carolina is going to want to get cleaned up. Obviously, the biggest one being on the offensive side, where you do have a bunch of new guys, and just it at times, like I believed at times it was going to be disjointed on offense, but I also thought there would be times where we saw them put together a cohesive touchdown drive, where you're like, oh, that's where it that's what they wanted it to look like,
right?
And it really felt like there were a few drives that started like that, but then those drives stalled out and they had to kick field goals. So it really, I'm sure, was frustrating for a lot of the guys on offense, frustrating for the offensive coaches. And, just to have it play out the way it did, I really thought South Carolina could just pull away when they were up 16-7. It kind of felt like, okay, they've got control of this game now.
Sure.
They let Old Dominion kind of chip away, claw back into it, and then had to score late. It certainly beats the alternative, which is that we would be sitting here talking about a season-opening loss to Old Dominion. I don't know how you bounce back from that. The reality is it is one game. The reality is you can't punt on a season after one game. There's a lot of correctable things from that game that we'll get to. But the reality also is they're going to have to clean it up fast.
Yeah, I think a big picture takeaway and a big picture question. So I think the number one takeaway, if you had to boil it down, the most conversation, there are problems on each side of the ball. Special teams, you had a block punt, defensively, you had a couple explosive plays. But largely, without diving into the minutia, you come away, I would say, relatively happy pretty happy about the defense, relatively special teams. We got plenty of time today. I'll wait to dive into those. But offensively, if you had to sum it up, it's exactly what you said, Wes. You didn't put together a touchdown drive. You scored a couple touchdowns on very short fields. And, hey, look, you actually love that. If you get into conference play, and we're going to talk about trends, if you can create some short fields for your offense to create scoring opportunities, that's fantastic. You don't want to rely on that, and you certainly don't know if that's going to be a trend. But when you look at this game, you had multiple drives, and you weren't able to put together kind of a normal 75, 70, 65-yard touchdown drive against Old Dominion. That's concerning, right? And so that leads me to the one big picture question. As you pointed out, Wes, a lot of the things we saw are correctable, but how many of them and then how quickly? There are probably some things that we saw on Saturday offensively that in some form or fashion, to some degree, will linger throughout the year. A lot of them were questions that we had about this team coming in: the receiver room, the passing game, the growth of Sellers, game one. Would he look like a redshirt freshman starting for the first time? If you had play calling / how you structure the offense in there, that's one. Some of these things may linger, but some of them, namely, I think, Sellers and his growth and how he could play from, game 1 to game 2 or game 1 to game 10 and 12. Those things you could certainly see improving. So it's just how many of them can you improve, how fast? Something that Wes and I were talking about this morning, Tyler. You look at a schedule of, say, like an Ole Miss or a Missouri this year, it's very favorable in the early part of the season, in that your first 3 or 4 games, I don't want to call them tune-up games, but they're not conference play. The easiest portion of your schedule is front-loaded. Now, when you get into conference play, that becomes tough because you're just stacking conference games, but you have an opportunity to kind of warm up to the meat of your schedule. South Carolina doesn't have that. You got Old Dominion at home, which is not, an FCS team. There's already going to be a little more challenging than, some home openers. You get right into it. Now you're at Lexington week 2. You're welcoming them in LSU week 3. It's something you got, any corrections you've got, you better make them fast.
Well, let's start off with Lenore Sellers, again, making his first start as a redshirt freshman. And, the couple plays we saw him make last year, tons of positives. 4 for 4 passing, had the long touchdown, Tyshawn Russell, long touchdown run against Vanderbilt, in his limited action there. We know anytime you're making your first start, there's going to be some mistakes. There's going to be some growing pains, things to learn from. I think what concerned a lot of people was the inaccuracies when it came to throwing the ball, just the lack of chemistry he seemed to have with his wide receivers. And we can dive into the receivers specifically a little bit here, a little bit later on, but because they certainly didn't hold up their end of the deal as well. But it just didn't seem like they were on the same page throughout the entire game when it came to trying to move the ball through the air.
Yeah, when we tried to set expectations for Lenoris, we kind of wondered, all right, is this going to be a guy who, unlike many quarterbacks, is just Teflon? Like it just rolls right off their back that they don't kind of worry about the moment at all, or is there still going to be a little bit of a settling in process for him? And I think we clearly got our answer that, yeah, there is going to be a settling in process. I would have liked for them to be a little bit more deliberate in getting him some easy throws early on, just sort of easy one-read situations. That said, to defend it a little bit, there were some easy throws for him available early on that he either just didn't take, whether it's, taking off running, whether it's throwing the deep ball. I think he's a guy who throws a beautiful deep ball. I think he's a guy who maybe this small sample size has to consciously dial it back a little bit on the underneath stuff because he does have the big arm. And he just, I think probably just never quite, at least in the first half, got comfortable. And I do think it kind of sped up on him a little bit, so to speak, kind of snowballed a little bit. Receivers didn't help him. There were some pass protection issues as well, especially when they were in situations where ODU knew South Carolina was going to throw the football, like third and passing situations. And, I think it all kind of goes hand in hand. If it was kind of the passing game to me, if you want to put it all together, it was like if it wasn't one thing, it was something else. And so, maybe there's a throw where you're like, well, Sellers could have made a little bit better throw, but then you're like, well, maybe the receiver could bail him out a little bit. And so it was like sometimes it would be one thing, but not something else that was executed. You look at the deep ball throw early on to Jared Brown. That one, you have the right play call on. You have excellent pass protection. I mean, that thing was protected up perfectly. Right read, beautiful throw, and it's dropped. So, I think there shouldn't be any panic about Lenoir Sellers. There just shouldn't be. I do think he looked to me like a young player who, because it didn't quite go as he probably expected early on, he was a little bit iffy. Now, there were a couple of throws I thought in the second half where you started to see him kind of take his drop, settle in, not throw off the back foot. Mechanics were good. Throw with confidence. I'm thinking in particular about that corner route to Dre Jacobs on one of their better drives, I think, of the second half. And so you started to see it maybe hit a little bit, but certainly that's going to have to be something moving forward where you have to get better play all the way around in the passing game. And a lot of that is going to be to find a way to just get him settled in early. And I think this will be because I'm sure they already reviewed the film on Sunday. I'm sure it was a very fruitful film review for Sellers. Now the question is, how quickly can he sort of translate that and take that to the game field from what he saw reviewing his game from Saturday?
Well, and something we know about Sellers is he is extremely sharp and he's extremely talented. And so, there are some guys, if you threw them out there or what you just know of him, you would say, he just can't. Yeah, one thing I saw actually on the Insiders Forum on Gamecock Central after the game is the pushback against the idea that, well, we were told Lenoir Sellers can make all the throws, and I'm not picking on this person, but well, in game one, he couldn't. And it's like, well, that's because, we can't close the book on Lenoir Sellers' career as a Gamecock based on game one. He can make those throws. Is he as talented of a passer as like a Spencer Rattler? Well, I'm not saying that. Spencer Rattler is doing some great things in the NFL and has a cannon. But Sellers can make the throws. He's not limited as a passer, but he was off on some throws. As you said, Wes, he was high on some. He was low on some. There were some timing issues. You pointed out earlier today, I think it might have been to Jared Brown. There was a play where Jared kind of settled. Lenoir thought he was going to keep going. It's things like that to where I don't think it's a physical issue as much as just settling in. And so something that Dow Loggins has said about Lenoir is he doesn't make the same mistake twice. And I assume that's not a completely literal statement. That probably means generally he doesn't. And so we're going to find that out. I do think this is a big week. I agree. That was probably a very revealing film study and a fruitful one. I do think Lenoir is going to improve as the season goes on. Probably even in game two, we're going to see some strides. But I think it's big for the offensive coaching staff to be able to find some answers, right? How can we being the coaching staff, make this slow down a little bit more and help bring him along, because the learning curve has to really, really accelerate going into week two against Kentucky on the road.
Well, and guys, how much do we think the possibility of the fact that we've been talking about three receivers emerging or not emerging and potential all the rotation in practice versus being like, hey, these are the first three out there. Let's get all this timing down. You're most of the time you're out there, you're going to have rotation, but I don't know, 70% of the time when the ones are out there, it's these three guys. Yeah. Now, maybe that was happening and we just don't know it. We're obviously not at practice this time of year, but it certainly felt like there's probably a lot of rotation with the ones at wide receiver. That's something, the rapport only comes with time. I think they got to settle in. I'm sure we'll talk about receivers on the other side of this break, but they got to sort of find a way to settle this passing game in and lock in on what they do well.
A lot of concerns for the receivers, not only in the passing game, but the blocking game as well. We'll hear from Coach Beamer after the game on what the receivers need to improve on coming away from Saturday. It is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler, West, and Chris, and your reaction Monday here on the game.
107.5 The Game.
In Columbia.
100.5 The Game.
In Florence.
100.3 The Game.
In Myrtle Beach. The Game Network. Ever been on this date?
You're a good-looking man.
Thank you.
Very pretty. Real soft, delicate features. They're real feminine.
And thought, man, I'd rather be listening to the game right now. Welcome in to the afternoon show. Alongside Elijah Campbell, I'm Jay Phillips. Well, just go to iTunes or Google Play and download the Game app. Sure, you may no longer be with that person anymore, but you'll never be without the game again. 107.5 The Game. Broadcasting live from the Herndon Chevrolet Studios.
Take up to $20,000 off new Silverados.
Stop by or shop online today and see why Herndon Chevrolet makes you smile. Together, let's drive.
All right, guys, as you know, this show, every single episode of the Gamecock Central Takeover is brought to you by our friends at Firehouse Subs. By the way, shout out to our guy, Larry Chandler, and happy birthday to Larry. It was his birthday over the weekend. Great dude, huge supporter of the Gamecocks and, of course, of this show. If you want to try something new at Firehouse, try this Firehouse Captain's Club featuring signature Captain Sorenson's hot sauce and their new Firehouse Hero sauce. It has savory oven-roasted chicken, melted pepper jack cheese, crushed red pepper flakes, lettuce, tomato, and onions, and, of course, my favorite, crispy, smoky bacon. Be sure to try the Captain's Club today at any of the 14 Midlands Firehouse Subs locations and order ahead, like we always tell you, with the Rapid Rescue to Go. By far the easiest way to order that, either online, firehousesubs.com with the Rapid Rescue, or download the app. Again, Firehouse Subs, hit them up right now, hit them up today.
Are you a Gamecock fan that's looking for flexibility to attend the games you want without committing to season tickets? If so, the Gamecock Go Pass is for you. For only $20 a month, your Gamecock Go Pass subscription provides you with access to all non-conference football games, most men's and women's basketball and baseball games, and all softball, soccer, and volleyball games. Plus, you have the ability to add on tickets for conference football games and premier basketball and baseball games for an additional cost. To learn more and sign up today, visit thegamecockclub.com/go.
South Carolina residents turning 65 or approaching retirement, this is it. The time to choose your Medicare coverage is here. But don't panic and settle for a plan that doesn't fit, because the Blue Cross Blue Shield of South Carolina Medicare team is standing by with plans that let you choose from our large network of doctors and hospitals and fast local service. Call 833-747-0533. 833-747-0533 now.
Since 1963, Takeuchi has been a pioneer in the compact construction industry, having developed the world's first compact excavator in 1971 and the world's first compact rubber track loader in 1986. Takeuchi continues to revolutionize the industry through innovative technology and listening to customer needs. Now you can partner with a truly global leader by contacting TEC Rental Equipment in West Columbia, Orangeburg, and Somerville. From world first to world leader, Takeuchi.
This is Bill Gunn for Old Timey Meat Market. I spend my nights with my son, my daughter, enjoying cooking out with Old Timey Meat Market foods, and you need to visit one of their 3 locations, St. Andrews, South Congaree, and Lexington, where you'll find their shelves stocked with various cuts and grades of beef, pork, poultry, seafood, and of course, exotic meats. Selections are always fresh, never frozen, competitively priced, and of the absolute highest quality. So get all of your needs at Old Timey Meat Market.
Old Timey Meat Market. Quality selection, a cut above the rest.
Is that your new Nissan Rogue?
Yeah. Crazy story. I'm at the Nissan end of summer sales event when Laura, the saleswoman, asks,
"Want to test drive the Rogue?"
I'm like, let's go. We're driving when Laura says,
"Want to see something cool? VC turbo engine."
I hit the gas and whoosh. I'm like, okay, wasn't expecting that. Laura goes,
"Check this out."
She shows me the miles per gallon and I'm like, wow, that's pretty impressive fuel economy.
These new Nissan Rogues are going fast.
I knew I had to have that Nissan Rogue. Crazy, right?
Wait till you hear how I got my Nissan Central.
Get up to $2,500 total savings on remaining select early model 2024 Rogue Platinum trims. 2024 EPA fuel economy estimates from 28 city 34 highway to 30 city 37 highway for 2024 Nissan Rogue. Actual mileage may vary. Total savings consists of $1,250 retail customer cash plus $1,250 bonus cash on select remaining 2024 Rogue inventory as available at your local dealership. Select Rogue bonus cash available on 40% of dealers' most aged inventory. Updated weekly. Available on purchase from new dealer stock. Contact your local dealer for current inventory information. Ends 9/3/24.
It's Reaction Monday.
Sponsored by Carolina Honda Powerhouse. CarolinaHonda.com. From the Midlands to the PD to the beach. The Game Network.
Welcome back in. Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler Head, West Metro, Chris Clark along with you, reacting to South Carolina's 23-19 win over Old Dominion on Saturday. By the way, the Loyola Special Teams touchdown contest has made its return. Almost got a payoff in game number 1. Fortunately, got called back on an eligible man downfield, but optimism will get some touchdowns for special teams this year. And if we do, you could win $100. Go online to 1075thegame.com and register for your chance to win the Loyola Special Teams touchdown contest. We talked a little bit about the receivers theme to that segment. Coach Beamer had some very pointed words and criticism for not only his receivers, but the offense as a whole coming away from Saturday's game. Cut number 12 here, Ed. Here is Beamer talking about what needs to improve with this offense.
We got to block on the perimeter better than we did tonight. Period. If you're going to play receiver here, you got to block. And if you're going to play tight end here and you're not in the passing game, you got to block. And I'm not saying the effort was poor. I'm not saying it was all bad, but I think we're going to look back at the tape and see that there's a lot of plays that if we just execute a little bit better in the run game on the perimeter, we'll be a lot happier. Having said that, you know, being able to sustain drives, I feel like we had some drives that we got down there and then shot ourselves in the foot. And but I'll say this too. I mean, we told them at halftime, we knew at halftime we were stinking it up in a lot of ways, and we told the offense in front of the team, look, all eyes are on you. We get the kill pin and kickoff. We want to see what you do here. You know, we haven't been at our best, and let's see what we do on this drive. And we had a drive that got 3 points. I went for that fourth down, backed up in our own territory, and I told the offensive line because I trust them and believe in them, and we were able to get that first down. And then we had a third down conversion on that drive to Dre over on the sideline, which was a big play. And then I hate that we weren't able to finish the drive with points. But, you know, we moved the ball. We got to finish with touchdowns. And you know, I looked up, you know, one time. I won't even get into that. We got to finish with touchdowns.
So go back to the first part of that. You know, as you mentioned, the blocking on the perimeter left a lot to be desired from the receivers and the tight ends as well. Offensive line was a little bit hit or miss. We can get to them in a moment, but definitely need a significant improvement from those guys on the outside when it comes to blocking in the run game.
Yeah, for sure. Rewatching the game on Sunday, that was pretty apparent, honestly. Now, on some of those, and I think to me a lot, the tight end stood out to me in not such a great way in terms of blocking on the edge. Now, Josh Simon did get one of the players of the game deals from Beamer yesterday. So, you know, take that what you will. But I thought, now it's hard when you're rewatching the game sometimes when you have a tight end coming across the formation and making a block. You don't always know what his actual rules are. That would be something maybe to ask somebody like Pat DeMarco or something, what his rules are on, does he take away the first guy or does he go into the second guy? There were times where it felt like maybe somebody, if they made one more block, it could have sprung a pretty big gain. And so I thought running game as a whole, solid. I think a good bit better than last year. I know it's ODU, but they struggled to run the ball against pretty much everybody last year. I thought there were some positive signs from the rushing attack. Now, guys, I was a little bit surprised that they had to run Sellers as much as they did. I look at that that's almost like a cheat code. Like when you have a good runner at quarterback, you can get some yards. Like it's very difficult to defend that when you have a guy like Sellers and a guy like Rocket back there. But you almost want the threat of that QB run to be just as effective as actually having to run your quarterback. They ran the quarterback and got him hit some, far more than I really expected going into this game.
Yeah, that was the interesting thing. It was kind of like we figured that Sellers would, take off when there wasn't a pass there. We figured there might be some zone read, maybe some power, some short yardage situations, but his volume of carries, I mean, I remember sitting there live early in the game going, man, I did not think we would see him run this much. Ended up having, and I haven't broken this out from, scrambles to design runs, but I mean, 22 carries in a game for Sellers is too much. Now, big picture, they put some of those things on tape that you hope they can build off of. There were some positives in the running game. I thought Rocket Sanders looked like Rocket Sanders. He didn't get a chance to have the big one, the big run. I thought the interior running game was better than the perimeter. The perimeter, as you just said, Wes, as Coach Beamer pointed out, not near good enough. The interesting thing is that Rocket Sanders has excelled when he was at Arkansas during his 1,400-yard season at the perimeter run game, and you're going to have to be better there. Here's the interesting thing. There is coming up immediately not just a heightened challenge against Kentucky in the run game. I think there's a much greater challenge because you're looking at, okay, our interior run game looks better if you're South Carolina. Now you got to go do that against Deion Walker, and that Kentucky front. You're going to have to run the ball on the perimeter. Your perimeter short passing game and run game is going to have to be better. And if you kind of think about the past couple years, I was just thinking in my head, you go back and listen to some of Beamer's post-game press conferences or some of his weekly press conferences. There's been a lot of talk about how the perimeter run game and the short passing game on the perimeter, which is basically an extension of the run game, has not been good enough. So that's an area they got to clean up. You want to be able to do it where you're not having to run Sellers quite as much. Beamer mentioned after the game, hey, we don't want to run him that much. So why did that happen? What does it mean going forward? These are all fair questions. But I do think even within this one game sample size, it was kind of up and down. I do think there were some positives in there. And certainly, I mean, you go back and look at the Furman game last year, an FCS opponent. Carolina had 108 rushing yards in that game. The lead total for a running back was 42 yards. So I do think there are some reasons to think it's going to be better, but you probably got to not run Sellers quite as much, and you got to get better running the football on the perimeter.
Well, I think the fact that you ran Sellers 22 times in the game probably speaks to, again, the lack of confidence that you have in your receivers up to this point, which we heard from Loggins a couple weeks ago that nobody was separating themselves, and we obviously saw that on display on Saturday. So it made your offense a little more one-dimensional when you knew you couldn't take advantage of things in the passing game as much.
Yeah, and I think you would hope you could just line it up and run it with more traditional rushing attack and still be able to have some success doing that. But they felt the need to run Sellers. I think you're probably honestly going to have to keep running him. I know you don't want to, but you're probably going to have to. Now, some of that will be maybe opened up a bit by getting the passing game going. I think it is fascinating. Beamer said basically, hey, if you don't block, you can't play receiver here. And so, guys, I like to look at the personnel that's on the field when the game is on the line and when there are certain situations. And I thought it was fascinating. One, Michael Smith is out there early at tight end.
First catch of the game.
He's out there late at tight end. He's out there when the game is on the line. He's out there goal line. I think they actually, as exciting as he can be as a pass catcher and as athletic as he is, they like him a lot as a blocker. And late in the game, I think I saw Delvon Campbell out there in run game situations as well, who's obviously a bigger receiver. So can a guy like Delvon Campbell, as a bigger receiver, come along for you? I thought there were some good things from Dre Jacobs. I thought there were some good things in limited action, or limited targets, I should say, for Mazeo Bennett. But you got to bring somebody along. Somebody's got to step up at that X spot, whether it's Delvon, Nick Harbor, Jared Brown play in there some. Somebody's got to step up there. We'll see if that happens. But Delvon, to me, is still that guy that, we talked about when they landed him. He can do a lot of different things for you, but Carolina's going to need him to keep coming on, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I really, after the game, came away with the thought of, okay, who were maybe the two most dangerous-looking guys at receiver? Not that anybody looked particularly dangerous during that game, again, given the disjointment of the passing game, but I did see some flashes from Dre Jacobs. I did see Mazio Bennett catching the football. We know, during preseason, all we heard was that he had probably been the most consistent guy actually catching the football, which is kind of an under-discussed element of playing wide receiver, right? Catch the ball when it's thrown to you. And we saw that kind of rear its head on Saturday. I still think Jared Brown can be a very important part of this offense. He had the little, was that a pass or a jet sweep? I can't remember, out to the flat where he picked up a first down. He did get wide open on the deep ball. Carolina had the penalty and he dropped it. So again, you had two issues that you kind of worried about, procedural and catching the ball going in. Both flashed on that play. But I do think he's a guy that has some dangerous playmaking ability to him. So it's going to be interesting to see what's different from game one to game two.
Plenty of things to discuss coming away from Saturday. There are some positives, particularly on the defensive side of the ball, that we'll get into coming up next. By the way, we'll hear from Shane Beamer once again coming up tomorrow for his usual Tuesday press conference at 1 o'clock here on the Game in Columbia. It is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs, a Reaction Monday here on the Game.
The Game Network in Columbia.
107.5 The Game.
In Florence.
100.5 The Game.
In Myrtle Beach.
100.3 The Game.
It's back! The Lawyer Lisa Special Teams Contest. Just go to 1075thegame.com and register. The pot starts at $100. Every week it increases $100 if Carolina doesn't score a special teams touchdown. But if the Gamecocks do score a special teams touchdown, you could win the pool. Again, just go to 1075thegame.com and register. It's the Lawyer Lisa Special Teams Contest from 1075 The Game.
All right, college football is in full swing, and so that means if you are looking to create or upgrade that man cave, your living room, your kitchen, your outdoor patio, your screen porch, whatever setup you may have, our friends at Integrated Media can make sure that you have the very best setup from an audiovisual standpoint. You don't need to go to the big box stores. They can handle it all for you, from sourcing the equipment to installing it for you. TVs, soundbars, Sonos wireless speakers, making sure your internet signal is great. So if you're streaming a bunch of games at once throughout your household, you don't get that dreaded buffering signal on the TV. Keep up with everything going on with our friends at Integrated Media. IntegratedMediaInc.com or 803-948-8327. Our friends Michael and Nathan, they've been to my home. They've been to Wes Mitchell's home. They can come out to yours too and make your audiovisual dreams a reality. IntegratedMediaInc.com.
There's no better place to be on a fall Saturday than at Williams-Brice Stadium. Single game tickets for the 2024 Gamecock football season are on sale now. Discounted single game tickets are also available for first responders, teachers, military, and more. To see what's planned for the 2024 season and to purchase tickets, visit GamecocksOnline.com/2024. Whatever the game, whoever you're with, just catch a game.
Falafel King is the sweet deal of the week. Get a $50 gift certificate for just $25. Visit 1075thegame.com beginning this Friday at 9 a.m. to get your $50 gift certificate to Falafel King for just $25. Join Lexington Medical Center for the Tunnel to Towers Columbia 5K Run and Walk on Friday, September 13th at 7 p.m. This unforgettable patriotic event champions the heroism of our nation's first responders and service members. Then stick around for the after party featuring live music, family-friendly events, and food trucks. Walk or run to honor our heroes. To register, visit t2trun.org. Opening ceremony at 6 p.m.
Honey, would you take a seat? I have a confession to make.
What is it? What's wrong?
Well, I was out driving today and I saw some hookers on the side of the road. A bunch of huge, professional, beautiful-looking hookers. So I did what I was supposed to do. I slowed down and I moved over.
You slowed down for the hookers?
Well, yeah, it's the law. There was a whole fleet of Schroeder's towing trucks assisting with an accident. Wait, what did you think I was talking about?
Schroeder's Towing reminds you to slow down and move over for all first responders.
Schroeder's Towing, the best and fastest hookers in town.
From lazy days and spontaneous adventures to revving up and reconnecting, you can almost feel the excitement building, the road ahead, and a whole new season of possibilities. It's back to cool time right now at Love Chevy with amazing savings on a lot chock full of brand new Tahoes, Suburbans, and the totally redesigned Chevy Traverse. A bolder exterior design, turbocharged V6, best-in-class cargo area, plenty of space for the team and the tailgate. Speaking of football, every day is game day at Love Chevy, where it's all about the fundamentals, honesty, integrity, and straight talk. No ridiculous add-on stickers like the other guys. And who could forget about Love Chevy's $1,000 low price guarantee? Get back to cool today at South Carolina's #1 volume Chevy dealer, I-26 at Harbison, and at lovechevy.com. Together, let's drive.
That's the power of love. Love Chevy.
This year, Roy and Dana Finley are shaking things up at AAA Heating and Air. For the next 12 months, they're telling their customers no. Get a new system purchase with no payments and no interest for a whole year. You heard that right. Purchase a brand new system in 2024 and get no payments and no interest until 2025. Do what I did. Call AAA Heating and Air today for your free estimate. 803-677-1500. Tell them Bill Gunner sent you.
AAA Air when you need us. AAA Heating and Air.
It's Reaction Monday.
Sponsored by Carolina Honda Powerhouse. CarolinaHonda.com. From the Midlands to the PD to the beach. The Game Network.
What you're talking about.
Sponsored by Love Chevrolet.
On the Game Network.
Wilson's going to run out of there. The Gamecocks will have none of it. Another fumble. And this time, the guys in the Garden Black have got it. What a stick on Wilson. And the call is Carolina takes the football, the third turnover on the afternoon, and this gives us life with 6:48 to go in the ball game, down 3.
Welcome back in. Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler, West, and Chris on your Reaction Monday. That was the call, Todd Ellis, on Saturday of one of the forced fumbles, that one being by Dylan Stewart, on what was a very, very impressive day for South Carolina defensively, particularly when we talk about the edge spot. Dylan Stewart and Kyle Kennard combining for 4 total sacks, lots of tackles for losses, and just consistent pressure on the quarterbacks. And again, this is one area of the team that we talked about a lot in the offseason, needing to take a step up. And for Saturday, at least, they certainly did that.
Man, I would say Dylan, as advertised, impressive. Just everything we thought, the length, the speed, the power as well. He actually has some moves, like some understanding of setting up offensive tackles and then going inside or outside. So, I thought when there were times he looked like the best player on the field, even though he was not a starter. He was a difference maker. So I would say Dylan as advertised, Kyle Kennard maybe even a step above what was advertised. I think we had a good feeling about what he was going to bring to this team, and a veteran guy. He is good in the run game as well, but just to make that immediate impact as a pass rusher and being able to convert that to sacks and tackles for loss as well, I thought that, you never know. Like, you think you know, but you see so little of practice these days. You are relying on what you're being told. And so to see it kind of play out in reality with those two guys and the rest of the defensive front as well. Like, there was a lot of things to be impressed with, but those two, to me, certainly stand out a little bit above the rest.
And I think, guys, if we're going to do the very fair point of South Carolina should have been able to move the ball a lot better on Old Dominion, and then get mad that they didn't. We shouldn't then say, well, it's just Old Dominion when we're looking at Dylan Stewart and Kyle Kennard's performance, the defensive front's performance. Yes, they did what they were quote-unquote supposed to in terms of showing dominance at times, but I think it kind of went a step above that. And it just showed that those guys, I think, were as advertised, or as you said, Wes, maybe a step above. I mean, I think it was a very encouraging sign for the pass rush. If they'd gone into this game and we didn't see that front flying around, kind of wreaking havoc, not getting to the quarterback, that would have been a big concern, right? Because especially after seeing and hearing this offseason that part of this team looked to be a lot improved. But they showed it. I mean, you go back and look at you can use the eye test, but if you go back and just look at what Kyle Kennard did, what do you have? 2.5 sacks, 3.5 tackles for loss. He forced a fumble. Dylan Stewart forced 2 fumbles. I mean, and the impressive thing, guys, Dylan Stewart did it banged up. I mean, he went down a couple different times. He wasn't just, tired or something. He was down on the field a couple different times. So clearly wasn't operating fully at 100% and still did that. And I think wasn't just a one-trick pony. He showed speed, bend, power. Like, he has some traits that not everybody has, but he was able to convert those to plays. And with Kennard, we saw it immediately. I mean, what was it? Play 2, play 3, gets to the quarterback, causes a fumble. They quickly convert that to a score on offense. So I think there were other guys that did some good things up front, but those two, definitely stood out at a position that really struggled on that front last season.
Well, and looking at the numbers on Pro Football Focus, they gave Gilbert Edmond a couple of pressures as well, so went out there and made an impact. That also on the defensive line, Tonka got a sack, TJ Sanders got a couple hits on quarterback. So your front group there on defense as a whole just had a really great game on Saturday, which is something that, based on the experience that we knew this group had, we were hoping was going to come to fruition in game number 1, and it certainly did.
Well, we saw that rotation come to fruition as well. They played really 6 guys at defensive tackle. They played 6 guys at the edge, I think, and were able to, there were times where I was like, ODU had a couple of sustained drives where I was like, all right, that pass rush looks like it's getting a little bit tired, and then it would be like seconds later, and they'd be kind of you got to pick your spots when you sub against ODU because they're so good at just getting up and getting lined up and snapping the ball quickly. But it'd be like, all right, well, here's that line shift that they talk about where, you just bring in an entire new group. And so I thought it kind of played out the way we thought in terms of getting really 12 guys up front on the field, getting several guys but not quite as many at linebacker on the field, and then not as much nearly rotation in the secondary in terms of that goes. But I thought very first play when we see Demetrius Knight, there's a little quick throw to the outside. Demetrius Knight recognizes it, sees it, accelerates to the football, makes a form tackle, and he did start, by the way. He was an oar. I was like, all right, feel good about him being as advertised as well. You want to talk about speed and athleticism and something they've tried to add to this defense. I thought that was the biggest change overall for me. Yeah, they had a couple busts. They had a couple things they'll want back. But, guys, this defense was hustling to the football, but they were getting there quickly. And there were times last year where I think a lack of speed hurt them. They looked a good bit faster overall to me this year.
Yeah, and that's one of those things that, it's always tough to project. When you play the schedule South Carolina does, week to week, it can be hard to project. We talk about this a lot. We've seen South Carolina football look very disjointed one week, and the next week look like they've got it pretty much all figured out, right? And so, and that doesn't just happen here. That happens other places. That's why you play the games. There's a lot of parity in this conference this year. There are a lot of really, really good teams. How about Vanderbilt? I mean, look, they look a lot better. That was one of the teams I said actually was one of the 2 teams that would be probably as bad or worse than last year. Dead wrong. Mississippi State won 56-7. So I think this is a really good league, and so it's hard to figure out what will happen week to week. But the athleticism upgrades on South Carolina's defense, the upgraded pass rush, the having more depth in the front 6, front 7. those are things that you can kind of project of, all right, these things I think will help them going forward as you get a higher quality opponent. It doesn't mean they'll be dominant or anything, but it's certainly, when compared to like last year, for instance, as you said, Wes, I think it'll help you.
Plenty more to get to with South Carolina's defense to wrap up today's edition of the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Just a moment, we want to remind you about Sips and Sounds of Columbia coming up on Saturday, September 28th. Unlimited sampling of over 40 brands of local and national craft beers, wines, seltzers, and spirits. Live performances by Ken and Drew of Sister Hazel and Days and the Donovan Twins as well. Get your unlimited tasting wristbands now at sipsandsoundscolumbia.com. We'll talk about the secondary and their big role that they played on Saturday to wrap up today's edition of the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by the Firehouse Subs here on The Game.
From the Midlands to the PD to the beach.
The Game Network.
Sips and Sounds, the only craft beer, wine, and spirits tasting event held indoors under the cool AC. No rain, no heat, no worries. Unlimited sampling of over 40 brands of local and national craft beers, wine, seltzers, and spirits. Live performances by Ken and Drew of Sister Hazel, Dazer, and the Donovan Twins.
Saturday, September 28th. Get your unlimited tasting wristbands now at sipsandsoundscola.com.
I'm Liddell Willingham with a Sports Minute. Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese are filling up box scores and setting records as they eye towards the playoffs. Angel Reese became the WNBA single-season rebounding leader on Sunday, and Caitlin Clark became the first WNBA player to ever have back-to-back games in the regular season with at least 25 points and 10 assists. The W is back, baby. I'm Liddell Willingham.
Guess what, people? Wendy's has new saucy nugs. You heard me. Wendy's nugs now come in 7 saucy flavors. Buffalo, honey barbecue, garlic parm, spicy ghost pepper. You can literally hear your taste buds after every bite. I'm serious. Listen to mine. Okay, that's just me playing with sound effects, but you got the idea. For a whole new way to nug, gotta be Wendy's.
At participating U.S. Wendy's. Who doesn't love getting something for free? Labor Day deals have arrived at the Home Depot, and right now you can get a free Milwaukee 18-volt extended capacity battery, $159 value, when you buy a select tool. Get longer runtime and more battery life so you can power all your fall projects. Shop Labor Day deals and get a free battery when you buy a select tool at the Home Depot. How doers get more done. Limit 1 per transaction. Exclusions apply. Full eligible tool list in store and online.
Do you have sagging, soft, or bouncy floors in your home? Well, this could be a sign of rotten wood caused by moisture in your crawl space. Damaged wood in your crawl space can affect your home's foundation, and that can affect your home's value, and nobody wants that. Say goodbye to sagging floors and hello to a stable foundation. Contact Canty today for your free inspection at 803-424-8380 or visit cantycanfixit.com.
Alan Kennington, responsible for this ad. Office in 1440 Broad River Road, Columbia, South Carolina.
It's called an accident for a reason. It wasn't planned, but it happened. It's not your fault, but somehow you're the one paying. Medical bills, lost wages, and the pain. You need someone on your side to fight for you. With over 85,000 cases resolved in 12 offices across the state, you need South Carolina's largest injury law firm. On your side, you need George Sink now.
Get George Sink Law Firm on the line. Call 999-999.
Football season is grilling season, and Jack Oliver's Pool Spa and Patio is South Carolina's premier source for the Big Three: Weber, Traeger, and Big Green Egg Grills. I'm Jack Oliver. Grill all your tailgate favorites to perfection with a premium gas, charcoal, or pellet grill, then top it all off with something sizzling from your griddle. For grills, griddles, patio furniture, hot tubs, and saunas, shop in store or online at Jack Oliver's Pool Spa and Patio, Forest Drive in Columbia, and jackoliverpools.com.
It should be easy to find a local plumber, right? Plumber near me.
Hey there, we can help you.
Weird. These are all big companies.
Excuse me, we're a plumbing company 2 miles away. Hello?
Well, it is what it is. Guess I'll dial that 1-800 number.
Can she seriously not see us?
No, they can't see you because you're buried deep in the list of local plumbers. You're invisible online. Introducing Cumulus Boost. Get a boost. Get found. Get on the map. Learn more at cumulusboost.com.
It's Reaction Monday.
Sponsored by Carolina Honda Powerhouse. CarolinaHonda.com. From the Midlands to the PD to the beach. The Game Network.
Down by 4 points are the Monarchs. 3 wide receivers right side. Grant bouncing. Got time. Throws in route. Tipped up. Intercepted. Jalen Kilgore at the 40-yard line. Kilgore with a great reaction off the tip play. And Carolina may have just sealed this with 1:29 to go in the ball game.
Welcome back in Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler West and Chris wrapping up today's edition of the show. That was the call at the end of the game on Saturday. Jalen Kilgore getting the interception to seal the win for South Carolina over to Old Dominion, 23-19. Second interception on the game. ODU Fortune had one in the end zone a little bit earlier after ODU had taken the ball away on the Sellers fumble there. So big plays for the secondary there. A bit of an up and down day at times. DQ Smith did get beat on the long ball by Isaiah Page for that 72-yard touchdown earlier on in the game. But again, the secondary made plays when they needed to, getting those big takeaways.
Yeah, I think pretty good first performance for the defense. I mean, we talked about the pass rush. You know, I thought they got quick pressure because that's an offense where they're trying to get the ball out quick and they're spreading you out, and you know they're going to put you in conflict. Basically, you're going to have to make a lot of one-on-one tackles if you're the defense. And this is an offense that was very explosive last year, was ODU. That was kind of what they were built on, was explosive plays. We saw a little bit of that. I mean, give ODU credit. That was a great answer to hit that ball down the middle of the field. Saw there was an open receiver. Receiver makes the catch. Quarterback makes the read and throw. And I thought their quarterback was very gutsy. Like, this dude stood in there. He got hit. He got pressured, kept making throws, gave his team a chance. Now, there's some throws he's going to walk back, obviously, with the picks, but at the same time, when you're having to throw the ball under duress and into tight windows all day long, that's the other side of it, is you're going to put the ball in danger. And, I thought overall, though, it was a good game one performance from the defense, and one that they can build on as they clean it up moving forward.
Ed, turn Chris up.
This morning, Wes, my opinion was that, if you had looked back at this game and Old Dominion had, even if the result was the same, if they had just kind of gone up and down the field on several drives and amassed a whole bunch of yards, I mean, they still put up some yards. They actually outgained South Carolina, which is another, if you look at South Carolina's offense, that's another kind of strike there. But they didn't just go up and down the field and convert tons of third downs and run the football really effectively. They hit a couple explosives to score, and you don't want those, obviously, but those are a little bit more correctable than if you're just looking at this thing going, man, everything was an issue. There were several points in this game where you're kind of looking at it going, all right, it's up to the defense. The offense is disjointed. They're not playing well. Can the defense come up with a big play or a turnover? And they frequently answered that call. We'll see if they can continue that throughout the season. They need help from South Carolina's offense, but they did a good job of complementing the rest of the team, kind of picking them up when they needed to be picked up. And while it wasn't a perfect performance by any means, I do think they showed, even in that small one-game sample size, some improvements that I think you can carry forward, to the rest of the year.
Well, as we've talked about so many times, the caliber of the opponent doesn't necessarily matter. If you go out there and do your job and execute the way you're supposed to execute, that builds confidence for you. And again, hopefully that's something taken to Kentucky coming up this weekend. And as we mentioned before, as we've seen many times in the Beamer era, they can look like crap one week and look like the best team in college football the next week. And we're certainly hoping that's going to be the case here. Because again, if you drop that game to Kentucky this weekend, I've said this many times this morning, I think there's a lot of the fan base that's just going to go ahead and lose hope in you for what this season is going to be, because that'll be two poor performances in a row to start off the season.
Well, we've talked about how big this game is, how important this game is for South Carolina, just because you sort of saw it as a swing game, a winnable game. And I don't know if y'all have been tracking the line, but it opened actually somewhat low. It was about 6.5. It quickly went up to 7.5. Then I saw it was maybe 9.5. I haven't seen what it is today, but it is obvious that people are betting based on what South Carolina did on Saturday and driving that line back up. And so I think for Carolina, you got to hope, and we're going to talk about this game all week, obviously. We got plenty of time. The short version is you got to hope that old adage about getting better from week 1 to week 2, like teams make the biggest jump week 1 to week 2, especially with a young quarterback. You got to hope that's true.
Yeah, and, that's the thing. Like, Lenore, some of these issues, I'll reiterate what I said earlier, some of them may linger, which could be a big concern. I do think some of them will improve because at least part of what we saw against Old Dominion was the inexperience of Sellers, not an incapability, because we know what he can do physically. We know his football IQ. It was just game 1 stuff, I think. And so I do think some of that's going to improve. Now, and even against the backdrop of South Carolina playing a very difficult schedule, I think he can still get better at some of these things. This defensive look that maybe he had not seen in practice, now he's seen it, right? Things like that. I think he'll get more comfortable. I think he'll get better. Will there still be freshman moments throughout this year? Probably so. But he's not, guys, going to be the same player in game 10 as he is game 1. And I think we have a hard time sometimes as college football watchers recognizing that guys can get better. We see the game, immediately analyze it, and say, that's it. I know everything about this team, and we really don't. There's a lot we still have to learn.
Plenty more to unpack from this game as the week goes along, but at the end of the day, they did pick up the win, which is the most important thing, and look to try and get back on track with Kentucky this upcoming weekend. That'll do it for today's edition of the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour, presented by Firehouse Subs. Halftime show with myself, Terry Ford, coming up next in Reaction Monday here on the game.
All right, guys, before we get out of here, let me tell you about our friends over at Midlands Home Renovations. Head on over to MidlandsHomeRenovations.com for more information. If you've been dreaming for that home makeover, you're just not sure where to start, do what we do and call Midlands Home Renovations. They specialize in whole home, kitchen, and bath transformations. And as one of the top-rated general contractors in all the Midlands, you can rest assured your home is being placed in great hands. From modern kitchens to luxurious baths to that sunroom add-on you've been dreaming of, they can bring your vision to life. So essentially, whatever it is you're thinking of, whether it is that sunroom, whether it's a kitchen, whether it's a complete bath remodel, you can take that vision, take all the little things you've been thinking of, tell them about it, and then they're going to tell you, hey, this is how we're going to bring this to life. Again, Midlands Home Renovations at MidlandsHomeRenovations.com to see their work and bring your home vision to life.
.1075 The Game. Broadcasting live from the Herndon Chevrolet Studios.
Take up to $20,000 off new Silverados.
Stop by or shop online today and see why Herndon Chevrolet makes you smile. Together, let's drive.
If you're looking for your next job, you know it can be a lonely process. Let Express Employment Professionals be your one connection for finding that job that fits, because every year, hundreds of thousands of people find work through their local Express office. Half of those jobs are in the logistics industry, such as warehouse